I'm very passionate about diversity, and I know you are as well. And when we look at the research around even gender diversity in teams, we know that there are better outcomes around innovation and performance.
Yeah.
Can you talk to that just in terms of diversity? And because we talk about multiple perspectives, but then I also know that many leaders are still male, white, come from privileged backgrounds. How do we how do we really use some of these techniques to firstly address the issue of diversity, and what do we need to know about diversity in terms of these results that we're after, in terms of really creating creative, innovative organizations?
I think a lot of it kind of boils down to your objective, right? The research is clear. Homogeneous teams are better if you need to do a known task in an unchanging environment. Heterogeneous teams or diverse teams are better if the task is unknown and or the environment is changing. So start from the premise of, is what I need for people to do jobs that I already know that I already know what they're doing, and it's a straightforward task? If so, don't look for diversity. Diversity in that
Yeah.
case will only add complexity and difficulty and slow the team down, right? So first, the case against diversity, but then the case for diversity. And I think the majority of cases, we actually don't know what needs to be done. And stability is an illusion. It is a highly unstable environment. In that case, it's far better to endure the known and well-documented pain of a diverse team, because they move slower, they're harder to communicate and to align. It does come with a cost. The outcomes are a step function better in an uncertain and highly volatile environment, which is the environment that increasingly we're all facing.
Yeah, absolutely. And and in some ways, again, it's teams coming together with in a heterogeneous teams coming together and having particularly different roles around short-term and long-term views can also, I think, create amazing results too. I keep talking about this issue of ambidextrous leadership because we find that particularly when I work with teams who are on a transformation journey, that's the real stickler. Executive teams as sponsors of those kind of step change projects or strategic projects start out very energetic and vigorous around that change, and then the competing demands of that business as usual, that core business, um, I think have an influence, and then
Yeah.
the team itself loses sight of that future direction. So I think executives in particular really feel the pressure of that ambidextrous leadership. Have you seen that in the work that you do with particularly sponsors of transformation?
Absolutely. I mean, as human beings, we crave certainty, we crave consistency. One of the most psychologically distressing phenomena we experience is the unknown, ambiguity. And so we tend to just we even create artificial or arbitrary clarity just because it's a
Right.
relief, right? Um, and ambidexterity is right. I mean, Charles O'Reilly and Michael Tishman, who've pioneered a lot of that work, Charles at Stanford, Michael at Harvard, they're close collaborators of mine, and they have demonstrated, again, going back to this idea, you have to have a leader who can justify, ambidexterity. For those who aren't familiar, the basic premise is you have to be able to simultaneously execute known capabilities and existing capabilities, known markets, et cetera, and simultaneously explore developing new capabilities and new markets. And being able to do both of those things, they call organizational ambidexterity. What is required, going back to the role of a CEO, is a acknowledgement that simple execution of the known plan is insufficient to deliver the value that we want to deliver. If you don't, they call that strategic alignment. If you don't have that strategic alignment, forget it. Don't explore. And you see that actually. I mean, the sad thing, I don't know what the story is at Telstra. I'd love to learn more about the history there. But the sad thing is, you see it, it's almost cyclical. You know, these design thinking labs, they get spun up and then
Yeah,
shut down every 3 to 5 years because it's, somebody's got a bold ambition and they're like a vision and they resource it and all this stuff. And then things change and it's, EBITDA would look a lot better if we got rid of that innovation lab. And so you kill it. And then the market comes back and you go, wow, we really need to be investing in innovation. And it's just, it's this cyclical
true.
thing.
Mm-mm. Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that internal alignment is important. It's almost like what you're saying. It's a foundation. You need that. You need to get that right, before you can stretch. And I think that my experience of the organization at that time, I think that there was some movement towards getting that internal alignment, but I wouldn't say that it was there. Definitely not there. So
Yeah, it's
at the
hard. It's
time,
hard.
so that's good. That could be right. So Jeremy, what's the next? We're at the end of the year. What's 2024 for you? What are you looking forward to?
I am very bullish on generative AI and leveraging generative AI to basically be Iron Man super suits for us mere mortals. And right now, they're just scratching the surface, Josephine, in terms of the
Mm,
possibilities. And so, where I really want to spend some time focusing in 2024 is helping human beings develop conversational skills with their AI
I love
co-pilots.
that.
And
Yeah.
it's very simple, but I mean, the research I've conducted, and it's going to be, knock on wood, and it's going to be published in Harvard Business Review in the spring,
Oh, great.
basically demonstrates that teams that look to AI as an oracle underperform. It feels like magic and they underperform. Teams that look to AI as a conversation partner
Right.
overperform, but it feels like work
Yeah.
and they don't like it as much. And
Mm,
so if you want it to feel like magic, it can, but it's probably not great outcomes. If you are willing for it to feel like work, you actually get to a better place. But what that requires is you shift from approaching ChatGPT as an oracle to
yes.
ChatGPT as a thought partner, as a conversation
Yeah.
partner. And the reality is very few people have any kind of conversational fluency.
Yeah.
And so to me, it's that the foundational kind of ability is folks have to be able to feel comfortable talking with ChatGPT, have an
Mm-mm.
ongoing conversation, an ongoing dialogue with ChatGPT.
That's interesting. I hadn't even thought about it that way. But I understand. I'm already starting to understand that that's an incredible skill set, and and when you say comfortable, does that also involve an understanding of what the AI co-pilot, I love that word too, needs from me in terms
Yeah,
of the prompts, in terms of that idea flow?
I don't think it's about being technical. I
Mm,
do think it's about having a willingness to re-engage and to question and to push and
right.
to that's the because of this well-known tendency, which we've discussed, a couple times now, and even in this conversation, to just settle for good enough.
Yes.
It's so easy. I mean, classic example. I need to title this podcast, right? You want to title the podcast. You ask ChatGPT for, even if you're enlightened enough to know I should ask for 10 answers, or what I've heard is that 20 is really what starts to get you kind of high variability. Then you look at those 20 and the question you ask? You're asking yourself, which one do I like best?
Yes.
You're
Yes.
not asking, I want 20 more.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no penalty for asking for 20 more and
Yeah.
20 more and 20 more. I mean, and not that you can read hundreds, but the point is, you
Mm-mm.
look at the 20 and none of them sing and none of them stand out to you. And you immediately go into, well, which one's the least bad? I don't
Yeah.
want to spend any more time on this,
Hmm.
rather than give me 20 more. I don't like these. Or even better, you know what? I really like number one, number four, number 17, and number 19. Can you give me more like that?
That's right.
And then when it comes back and you don't like them, you go, why do I like number one? I like number one because it's got alliteration. I like number four because it's got a pun.
Mm.
I like number 17 because, whatever it is. Can you give me more using alliteration and puns and whatever as design principles, right? That requires effort,
Yes. Yes.
period, you know?
Mm. Hmm.
And so, and if you're willing to do that, you get to the point where you're like, that is a solution I never would have thought of. It is
Yeah.
better in every way. That's a super powered individual, but it requires having that practice. So
Yeah.
that's one thing I've been building is actually a series of drills. I've called them, kind of AI fluency skill
Hmm.
drills for individuals to practice getting conversant with AI.
Great.
To me,
Mm.
that's that kind of comfort level and confidence is the starting blocks for organizational deployment of AI.
Oh, that's amazing. Where can people find the drills, Jeremy? Are they
Yeah, they'll
available?
be at howtofixit.ai, howtofixit.ai.
Great. All right. And we'll put that in the show notes too. That's
Cool.
wonderful. I'm really excited. Maybe we can talk again next year after the HBR article comes out. Can you, I don't, obviously you're going to, you're in the middle of publishing that, but can you give me a little bit of just a sneak preview in terms of how that research was conducted?
Yeah, happy to. We went inside of organizations in the US and in Europe,
Hmm.
and we had them specify a problem that they were trying to solve. That they wanted to, conduct brainstorming sessions around. So sometimes a new product, sometimes about education, sometimes it's about a new market, et cetera, et cetera. We had teams of people come in and we developed a brainstorming structure, very simple brainstorming
Yeah.
structure for a team to consider, interdisciplinary team to generate ideas, right? This is kind of my sweet spot. The important thing is half the teams had access to ChatGPT and half did
Hmm.
not.
Oh, okay.
So at the end of the session, we ask the problem owner, blind of which team the ideas came from, to grade the ideas.
All right.
And so we basically were measuring three things. One, how many ideas does a team generate? And
Hmm.
compared teams with
Yeah.
ChatGPT, teams without. How broad of a quality variation is there from dumb to delightful, right? From dopey, as Steve Jobs would say, to delightful. From comparing ChatGPT teams and not. And then third, how did the experience affect participant sentiments? We asked people before and after, how do you feel about
Ah,
collaboration? How do you feel about problem solving? How do you feel about brainstorming? How do you feel about generative AI? And we asked teams that used ChatGPT and teams that didn't before and after, and compared the impact of the experience on their feelings about those various topics.
right. I love it. Can't wait to read the article. And in some ways, HBR, spring is great, but the technology moves and our practice around it moves so quickly. So let's hope it
Mm,
gets a speedy publication.
yeah,
It's almost like we need to get better, particularly in the peer-reviewed space. We need to get better at kind of doing this faster as well, don't we,
yeah,
Jeremy? It just
yeah.
takes
That's right.
a little bit too long because that would
Yeah,
be fabulous to have a read of right now.
yeah.
That's wonderful. Jeremy, is there anything I haven't asked you today that you wanted to share? Anything else on your mind?
No, well, a couple things. One, I'd love to connect with people on LinkedIn, or they can visit my website, jeremyutley.design, if they want to, subscribe to the newsletter or listen to my podcast or anything like that. And two, maybe the last thing actually I'd say is I'm a Christian, and my work is motivated by my faith. My not just work, but my
Yeah.
life is motivated by
Mm-hmm.
my faith. And
Mm.
I feel that's something that some people don't, they're reluctant to express
Mm.
because they don't want to be seen as proselytizing. I mean, I'm certainly not, proselytizing or anything like that, but
Yeah.
I feel when we talk about what motivates us, for me, it's
Yes.
I want to do great work because I believe that is good stewardship of the life that I've been
Mm.
given,
Mm. That's
and
wonderful.
I believe that I have to answer for the life that I've lived at the end of my life, and so that's important to me. And so anyway, anytime I have the opportunity, it's funny, a lot of times, we'll run these workshops or have these, um, keynotes and things like that. And I'll get invited to dinner by the, host or the client or whatever.
Yeah.
And someone almost inevitably will say, so where do you get your energy? Something
Mm-mm.
like that. Because I tend to be very energetic and sarcastic and funny and things like that. Not now, but, with people. And, uh, and, and I'll say, do you want the honest answer or the superficial answer? Right? Because
Yeah.
some people don't want a real conversation, and sometimes people say, never mind, but the people who say, I want the honest answer, I say, It's because I'm a disciple of Jesus Christ. Yeah,
Mm,
it
mm.
brings a lot of purpose and meaning into my life. And
That's wonderful.
the number of people who go, "I thought you were going to say you did CrossFit," or some, you know, I thought you're into meditation. It's like what's funny is people have come to expect in the world today,
Yeah.
CrossFitters are going to be out. Or I thought you were going to say you were vegan, right? Which is
Yeah,
like
yeah,
that's great.
yeah,
By the way, I do like CrossFit. I do like vegetables. All those things are fine. What's
yeah.
funny is we've entered into an era where a
Mm.
CrossFitter can proudly proclaim the virtues of high intensity interval training, and a vegan can, proudly proclaim the virtues of a microbiome boost,
Yes.
right? But a Christian or a person of faith of any
Yeah.
kind goes, I don't, I
Yeah.
go, I don't want to be any quieter about the thing that matters most to me than the vegans.
Exactly.
Not good or bad on veganism, but it's like if we want to value one another as human beings, we should be able to say, honestly, this is what
That's right.
drives me.
That's right.
And
Absolutely.
if you're like a yoga practitioner, I'd love to hear all about it,
Yeah.
and or whatever it is, right? Whatever the thing is.
Yeah.
But to me, to withhold that because
You're
of
not bringing
some
your whole
fear.
self to things if you withhold that. Thank you, Jeremy. I love that you've added that. I wanted to tell you just very quickly when I lived in the Middle East for a year, and then was sort of back and forth for the next 4 or 5 years. So I spent about 6 years in the Gulf state of
Mm,
Oman, and
mm,
I have amazing friendships there. And what struck me when I went to Oman was the very first question people ask you is, what faith are you? And they want to have a conversation about it. It's not
mm,
because they want to judge you for it. It's mainly because
mm.
it's such an important part. Daily
Yeah.
practice in faith practice is it's structured. It's sort of structured within the state's systems as well as the organizational system, but it's also Oman is very open to other faiths as well, and they were very keen to know what my faith was, and I'd never been asked that question. It was
Wow.
amazing. And so for the year that
That's
I
cool.
spent there, I kind of could lean into my faith as well. So
Mm,
that was
mm.
really, in some ways, freeing. So I'm really
Yeah,
glad you mentioned that.
that's cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that.
Yeah,
I've never been to
yeah.
Oman, but I'd love to go. So, if
Beautiful.
anybody's listening from Oman,
Muscat.
I'm willing to entertain opportunities to visit. Let me
Oh,
know.
maybe we have to make some connections. We'll talk about
Let's
it.
do it. Okay, cool. Right on.
Thank you, Jeremy. It was a
My
wonderful
pleasure.
conversation. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so, so much.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.